Sometimes when you look out across farmland after the harvest, it can look a bit lifeless. The soil upturned, exposed, and waiting for the next crop. But some farmers are trying to change that picture. By leaving the soil undisturbed and planting cover crops, they're trying to improve the land's health while also keeping carbon locked safely underground. It's part of a growing market for soil carbon credits, a system that turns those climate-friendly farming practices into tradable units that companies can buy to offset their emissions. Radisson Hotels has signed a deal with Agreena, the Danish startup leading this movement, and even Ryanair has pre-ordered some of its credits. This week on GreenShift, I travelled to the English Fens to meet one of Agreena's partner farmers and see how this works on the ground, and to ask whether this kind of carbon farming really is a climate solution or just another clever way of counting emissions.
Okay, so I'm Thomas Gent. I'm a farmer. We farm on our family farm, which is called Gentle Farming. I farm with my dad and my granddad, and I also work for a company called Agreena.
How long has the farm been in your family?
Yeah, so my great-granddad got the first fields after the Second World War, and then, so I'm the fourth generation. And yeah, like I said, now I farm with my dad and my granddad.
Where are we? I know we're in the Fens.
Yeah, so good question, actually, we forgot that bit. So we're on the kind of edge of the Fens. We're not on really fen land, what you'd kind of traditionally call fen land. This is quite heavy, so heavy clay type soils here. But we're, on the very flat part of the country. We're, sort of near Peterborough on the Lincolnshire-Cambridgeshire border. We farm about 800 hectares. So we're right now standing kind of right at the corner of our farm, and our farm spreads all the way that way. Yeah, so all the way to those trees.
Nice. And we're starting on a field. And what do you tend to farm on this field?
Yeah, so the crops we grow quite a wide variety of crops, and that's a really important part of regenerative agriculture. On this field, last year, we grew a winter wheat, which can go into animal food or it can go into bread and things like that. And then we've planted a cover crop on this field. So that's a plants that we grow on the field, not to harvest, just to rebuild the health of the soil. And this will be planted with a spring crop. So a crop that we plant in the spring. I think this is coming into oats.
Oh, wow. Nice. And tell me a bit more about Agreena. So the farm hasn't always been Agreena hasn't always been part of the farm. So when did that start? And what exactly is regenerative agriculture?
Yeah, exactly. So regenerative agriculture is what we're here to talk about, right? So regenerative agriculture is such an exciting new thing that's coming kind of into the sector. It's becoming more and more and more popular. I'm very lucky that my dad and my granddad moved our farm to a regenerative farming system 17 years ago. So in 2008. So we've been doing this longer than most people at a large scale. So yeah, we farm, like I said, 800 hectares, 2,000 acres, fairly reasonably big size farm in the UK. And yeah, regenerative agriculture, we moved away from a conventional farming system to a regenerative farming system in 2008. And we've kind of been on the journey of trying to get better and better and better at it for the last 17 years. And there's always more to do, but we're getting better.
Wow, amazing.
And it might be better if we just go and stand on the road and look over the field, because we can see what a neighbour's field looked like and then we can compare it to our field.
Yeah, excellent.
One of the biggest differences between a conventional farming system and a regenerative farming system is the amount of soil disturbance you do.
Yeah.
So really, regenerative agriculture, you can just think of it as a byword for improving the health of your soil. And that we do that through lots of different practices that we do on our farm. And here we've got a little bit sneaky. We've gone to the road and we've just had a little look over our neighbour's field. And this is what a traditional farming system would like. So they harvested the crop on this field in August, this harvest. Then they've come in and they've done a lot of soil disturbance. They've done a lot of cultivation. We can see a cultivated bare field, and most people know what that looks like when they drive around the countryside.
Very clunky bits of soil that's been kind of like dug up.
Exactly. And the important thing is you can't see anything really growing, and you can't see the residues from the previous crop.
Yeah.
So that's been heavily cultivated. And if you had kind of carbon goggles on, you could see carbon just gassing off that field, because as soon as you turn soil over and expose it to the air, carbon is released from it.
Right.
So that field is literally exhausting off carbon. It's kind of like a car belching out carbon. All
So the carbon that was there all through the growth of the crop has basically been released.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It doesn't obviously all get released in one go, but it kind of, people have been farming in this conventional way for hundreds of years, right? And so all that carbon's kind of slowly getting degraded and released.
But doesn't the stuff that grew here kind of like sequester carbon through the growth?
So obviously when a plant, like how a plant grows is it photosynthesizes, right? And it takes carbon out of the atmosphere to make itself grow. Obviously with some of that grain we sell, that's the point of farming, right? We sell because people want to eat some bread or whatever they want to eat. And then the plant that's left, that is still, a lot of that is carbon. But some of it people sell to straw, maybe to cattle, or sell the straw, and then the rest of it they buried underground.
Yeah,
but it's only the small amount that's left, and they've basically, if you think about it, the stuff that was buried before has now been turned over and exposed. So you're always releasing, So you, in a conventional farming system, you're essentially continually kind of degrading your soils over the years, but people did this for a very good reason in the past, because they did that because ploughing has been obviously done for hundreds, all of human existence. We've ploughed fields like this, and we've done it to grow food, right? And we've learned that when you do this, it grows food really well. But what we learn now is we can grow food and we can do it in a better environmental way.
All right. Well, shall we?
Yeah.
I was just wondering if, because because of the photosynthesis and everything, on a traditional farm, it might offset itself through when they plough the field and the carbon's released.
Yeah, essentially the equation doesn't work out like that. It releases more than it stores.
Okay.
And also, obviously, we sell a lot of it, in terms of grain.
Yeah.
As well. So this is one of our fields. This has been in a regenerative farming system for 17 years. As I said, there's a lot of, obviously there's a big visual difference, but there's a lot of things we do, practices that we do to make this field improve over time. So whereas that field was kind of degrading over the time, this field is improving over time. And what I mean by improving is the soil is getting healthier, and that has lots and lots of benefits. One of them being the amount of carbon that we can store in the soils, which we can obviously now quantify, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But so effectively the difference between that and this is the set of practices that we do. And the key one really is cultivation. So obviously that field you could see was very cultivated, right? This field, the same thing has happened. We harvested a crop of wheat in August, but instead of doing any cultivation at all, we've come in here and we've planted what's called a cover crop. So that's what all of this is that's growing. You can see all these different plants. That's a cover crop that we've planted. We're not harvesting it. It's only there to rebuild the health of the soil. And it also stores a huge amount of carbon in it because it sucks it out of the atmosphere.
And so the yellow stalks, is that the leftover of the wheat?
Yeah, so this is wheat. And another thing that you can see that really interesting on healthy soils is you can maybe see it. This is a kind of little cluster of straw.
Yeah.
And that's because a worm's done that.
Oh.
So if you look under there, look, there's a little wormhole. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So what worms do is they stick their head out, they drag all the straw close to them like that and make a little nest, and they'll drag it under down and digest it. So a really good way to tell a healthy soil is if you walk on a field, you can see all these little clusters. That means there's lots of worms.
Well, that's something I'll never forget.
Yeah.
When I walk in a field.
So next time you can just go like that and you can see the little hole.
Oh, wow.
We've probably disturbed it now. But
then a good sign of good soil is like good worms, good earthworms and things.
Yeah, so people always ask me what makes a good soil, right? And the truth is, you do inherently know it when you see it. We've just dug up a bit here and, it crumbles up nicely. It feels nice. There's worms in it. There's one I've dropped there. There's lots of roots in it. And really the thing that we're looking for is diversity. There's a lot of stuff. There's just a lot of stuff going on in here.
Yeah, there's roots. There's worms, a few worms and things.
Yeah, and there's a little baby worm there. Whereas if you went over there and we did the same, it would just be a lump of soil with nothing in it.
Kind of lifeless.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing which, you need to do, and I always tell people to do is, we're built with really great sensors to tell what good soil is, and it's called our nose. So if you smell some good soil, it smells inherently kind of nice and organic-y. Yeah, exactly.
It does smell nice.
But you can see that. So that shows you a good soil, but this has took 17 years of work to get to this.
Wow.
But yeah, it grows a healthier crop as well. That's the important thing.
And why do you do it and not other farms?
Yeah, good question. So It's basically a slowly developing thing. So when Grandad and Dad started doing it sort of 17 years ago, there really wasn't hardly anybody doing it, especially at the scale we were doing it. Now it's becoming more and more popular, but it's still the minority, I would say, of how kind of food is grown. But it's becoming more and more popular as we see really the effects of climate change have a really dramatic effect on farming effectively. And now we've obviously got this exciting opportunity that we're here to talk about is fields like this, when we're doing all of this good stuff, can actually suck carbon out of the atmosphere and store it in the soils, which brings, lots of opportunities for everybody.
So how is climate change affecting your farms?
Yeah, good question. So the best example is to give you a specific example, right? So you might not have known, probably you enjoyed the summer, but this was the driest spring and summer, like crazy.
It was crazy, wasn't it?
Crazy.
It was just days and days. It's just unheard of.
We had no rain. So, But the exciting thing is, when you drove around this area, I could have driven you through it and you could have picked out our fields because they stayed greener longer.
Oh, wow.
So when the soil, this is another benefit of when you have healthy soils, it holds and stores a huge amount more water than that type of farming system. And so the plants can survive and last longer. So that's just one example, right? But there's lots of examples of the benefits that this essentially healthy soil is just more resilient and it will grow a healthier plant.
Amazing. And what happens when you're ready to plant a new crop here?
Yeah.
When will you do that?
Sure, we can go and see that happening now. That's what we're doing in that field. Do you want to do that?
Sure, yeah. And then we can talk about how you measure everything.
Yeah, exactly. This is so this is like we harvested this in August, and then we planted a cover crop, and then this will be planted with another crop in sort of April time, and then we'll harvest that. It'll be oats, and we'll harvest that in August. And so all of our oats go to Huel, the nutrition drink.
Oh yes,
it's like Huel.
Oh yeah, very cool.
With our oats, because they want regenerative oats. Yeah. But it's very hard to explain to people without seeing it, but it's such a good example to see that over the road.
I feel bad for your neighbour. They need to get into when...
there's a lot of issues why people don't, right? They don't buy it.
Yeah, why don't
I think we do it? Does
it just take more time, or...?
No, so there's a few different things. There's quite a big cost. There's a cost to change. You need more knowledge, or different knowledge, let's say. You might need some different equipment. So you need to buy some different machines to be able to do what you've got to do, and the tractors and things are quite expensive nowadays.
Yeah.
And then you also need, there's a risk basically during the kind of regenerative transition. So the first sort of 2 or 3 years of your transition, there's a risk that your yields can dip. And just because the margins in farming are so tight, people can't take that risk.
Yeah.
And even though in the long term it would be better, they can't get over that 3 or 4 year barrier, let's say, of a transition. And that's why Agreena and carbon credit markets fit to this, and they exist to support that transition. Yeah, so we've now come to a different field, and this is a field that we're planting at the moment. So this field was oats. So we harvested these oats in like August, and now we're planting it with winter wheat. And you can see the difference. So this is the same thing. We're doing the same operation as the guy that we just saw. This is what our field looks like compared to that field. You see? So it looks like we've just harvested it. Sort of, you can see all the straw still standing and everything like this.
Yeah.
And we're coming in with this tractor and drill that's just coming up the field.
Yeah.
And this is what plants the seed in the ground. So if we go, we'll be able to see some seeds, hopefully.
So you're planting without upturning the soil?
Any surface, any disturbance at all. We're literally just putting the seed in the ground. So whereas on a conventional farming system, you'd harvest and then you'd maybe plough it and then do a few different operations, maybe 4 or 5 different times in the field. What we're doing is we harvest it and then literally nothing in between, and then we plant. Nothing.
Isn't it harder to get the seeds in the ground?
So you need a special machine like this, which is called a direct drill, or a no-till drill, some people call it. And this is what plants the seed in the ground. This is a really special one because, my granddad's an inventor.
Oh, wow.
And he has the patent on this machine.
Does he?
Yeah, and it's licensed to companies all over the world, and it's sold all over the world. And so there's lots of direct drills available. I'm not selling direct drills, but this is just one that he has now grown to wheat. This will be a wheat field. So the important thing about that machine is it doesn't do any disturbance. As you kind of rightly said, you can't tell any difference.
And that's more expensive, that kind of machine, than a regular.
They are quite expensive.
Yeah. And one of the things you were saying earlier was about the cost is sometimes.
Yeah. So you need to buy one of these instead of the ones that he already got.
I see.
And I mean, I don't know what a new one of those machines is going to be, but it's going to be £150,000, something like that. And then you need a tractor on it, which is nowadays 300 for a tractor.
Yeah.
So that's probably
300,000.
Yeah, probably.
Right, new.
Depends what tractor you got, right? But like, so that's probably, let's say, 400 grand of machine driving at the field.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, that's
It's a lot.
it's a lot more than
A lot of money going up on the field.
And then you've got to have a tractor, some trailer, and a seed.
I didn't realise, to be honest, well, I didn't really know what to expect, but I didn't realise that the soil is basically just left, just not disturbed at all, pretty much.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if I didn't know this and I was just walking or driving past,
You wouldn't even
I wouldn't even know the difference. I'd just be like, oh, maybe it's a different crop or something.
Yeah. But we can talk about it. So yeah, do you want to talk about carbon?
Yeah, let's talk about
measure and So we obviously seen all the practices. There's lots more, but there's lots of practices that are improving the carbon storage in the soils, and we've seen lots of them. But the important thing nowadays, and why I got involved in this, is we can now measure that carbon addition into the soil, if you want to call it that, and we can obviously turn that into a carbon credit, which then has a value in the market, and it can help farmers during that transitional period that we've talked about. So I got involved in this stuff in COVID, actually, because I was a bit bored and I was doing some carbon measurements on our farm, and I started to realize that the carbon was being stored in the soils, and this is something we should kind of properly measure rather than, exactly, look into more. So I kind of set myself the challenge and tried to figure that out. And then I quickly realized it was quite complicated and needed to be done very well. So I then actually found Agreena. They just started in Denmark. And I kind of joined the Agreena team in January 2021, just when they were starting. And now obviously we work with 4.5 million hectares across 20 countries in Europe to measure and monitor the carbon performance effectively of those farms and fields, and to issue carbon credits under the Vera methodology that we've now been verified against. So it's super exciting, right? Because I've been in Agreena for 4 or 5 years now, and we've just got our Vera issuance, which I'm sure you've seen, and we've issued the first soil carbon credits. So it's super exciting.
I mean, how do you know how much carbon's in the soil?
We need to understand the number of carbon credits we can get for a field, right? And it depends, obviously, on many different factors, right? It depends on factors that the farmer can't change. So it depends on the climate and the soil type and kind of fixed things like that. But it also depends largely on the management practices of that farm, right? So the practices, like the practices we've just seen, what practices does the farmer choose to implement? And obviously the more good stuff the farmer does, the less fertilizer he uses, the more cover crops he grows, the more good stuff he does, the more carbon is being stored into his soils and the less carbon he's emitting as well. So we do that through a few different ways. The first way is we obviously have to collect data and find out what the farmer did in the field. So obviously we collect data from farmers, we do auditing, we do MRV processes to be able to check the farmer's done what they said they've done in the field. We obviously then do soil sampling as well across a large area, and then we have very sophisticated models that can calculate the carbon performance of each individual field. The carbon calculations are made per field, so we get down to a very kind of granular level, and then that can inform us then of how many credits, and obviously then we have to go through the kind of Vera processing of methodology, auditing, verification, all of those processes to be able to issue a credit, which people like Radisson are interested in purchasing.
Yeah. And the calculations for the amount of carbon in the soil, is it done like annually? So for this year it was this much, and what's the difference between one year and the next? Because isn't it just the same carbon in the ground?
No,
what is it?
So the kind of carbon calculation and the issuance of credits is done on a yearly basis, and it's done not on a calendar year but on a harvest year. So it's done on the kind of the cycle of the farm. So like the harvest year is usually August to August, which is you kind of when a crop grew, right? So you usually we're planting this winter wheat now, we'll harvest it in August. So that's how it's done. It's done on a yearly process, and every field is going to perform slightly different every year because a farmer's done something slightly different on that field every year. So this field, like I said, it was oats last year, it's wheat this year. Next year it might be beans. I'm not sure what's on the plan. I can't remember. But obviously every one of those crops has a different performance, and obviously the amount of fertilizer we use and the diesel we use all has an effect on it as well.
And what sort of carbon credit is it? Is it like avoidance, additional?
Yeah. So, well, we actually produce it. Farming and soil carbon is really interesting because we can produce two different types. So we produce removals and reductions. So removals, obviously, we all know what they are. Like, we're physically taking carbon out of the atmosphere and putting it in the soil through things like cover cropping. And then reduction in emissions, so reduction credits, are done through things like using less diesel. So we're driving the tractor in the field less, or maybe using less chemical or less fertilizer, things like this that reduce the amount of carbon. That's a reduction credit. So we actually produce both. And again, the split between them will depend on what the farmer did that year.
And are additional carbon credits worth more than reduction carbon credits?
Removals, yeah. Removals do tend to have a greater value. They're also very important, right? We're taking carbon that's been in the atmosphere and removing it and storing it in the soils. The exciting thing about removal credits is, like we've already said, is the one thing of storing carbon in the soils also improves the health of that soil, and we've already talked about it, right? But it has so many other benefits aside from or additional to just storing carbon, right? It reduces the flood risk. It improves the water filtering, water holding capacity. It improves the biodiversity and the life in the soil that we've just seen. It improves the resilience and the health of the crop. So it has that's the really exciting thing I get excited about soil carbon. It has all these like co-benefits that go with it, which is really awesome.
And when businesses come to you and they want to, go into a contract with you or something, do they ask about the integrity of the credits? Because obviously carbon credits have had a history of ups and downs. Vera as well. Like, why did you choose them over others? Because they've also had their issues in the past.
Yeah, so I have two hats on, right? So like, as a farmer, I work through the Agreena platform to do all the verification and issuance, and then Agreena can also help me sell those credits, right? So that as a farmer, that's the kind of perspective that the farmer has. A lot of our corporate clients often have farm visits similar to this, where they kind of want to see it and feel and smell some soil themselves. So we do that quite a bit, but that's the kind of farmer's view. Then obviously, as Agreena, we are the ones that are doing the sales and talking to the clients and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, we definitely have like such a lot of interest in the minute of this sector, because it's such a has all of these co-benefits, and it has all of this co-benefits that it can improve the soil and the health and the food system, not just store carbon, but it obviously does an awesome job of that as well. And it can also do it much quickly, right? It can tree takes decades and decades to grow, whereas we can do stuff in the soil much quicker, which is really exciting.
When you got into it, were you kind of like cautious and a bit worried about the reputation of carbon credits?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, right? Because like you said, carbon credits have been talked about a lot in the sector. I think it's very clear from all the climate science and everything that carbon credits and carbon removals especially are like an essential part of the globe getting anywhere near net zero. So it's really important that we have them. And that's why I kind of mean is like, if we can do them in a way that also benefits other parts of life, the nature and the biodiversity and the water and the food quality, then it's awesome. I think farmers are definitely, they definitely think about getting involved in programs. But what we see, especially with farms like me, over the longer term, farmers can be much more profitable by farming in this way because we're using less diesel and things like that. The tricky thing we have is that transitional period, which we talked about. And that's why I think carbon credits fit so perfectly into the situation.
I think carbon credits definitely have a role to play in decarbonisation, but I think it's like the really high quality ones that are the ones that are going to survive.
I also think it's really why I really like doing this and working in the sector is because often a lot of our clients are very local, right? And like, obviously farms are everywhere. So wherever your corporate offices are or whatever it is, factory, whatever it might be, or hotel, you can there's probably a farm near you that's doing something awesome like this that you can go and visit and see and point to and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So the locality of it and the kind of the real nature of it, of like you said, you wouldn't know any different, but I can come here and I can show you, look at this field, look at this field.
I know.
And it really makes people understand, I think.
And what sort of businesses buy carbon credits from you and other companies in Agreena?
Yeah, like a big
farms in Agreena.
Yeah, big range. So obviously Agreena does the kind of trading on our behalf, but the big range of companies buy, like from hotel chains to to airlines, to insurance groups, and everything in between. Really, I think there's a lot of interest in it. There's also a really interesting thing for the agricultural market is the supply chain as well, and how we can interact with the supply chain and produce lower carbon footprint wheat and things like that.
Well, yeah, because that's scope 3, isn't it? A lot of businesses in the travel industry, which I focus on, they're always talking about the challenge of scope 3 suppliers and how do we get them to bring down their emissions and what have you.
And it's the same for food companies, right? And that's why it's really essential that farmers work with a reputable kind of carbon calculation and crediting program, because you need to ensure there's no double counting, right, between different supply chain programs and different carbon offset programs. To ensure that is essential, and it's going to be essential.
Yeah, because I guess businesses are looking for solutions, aren't they? They're looking for, they're doing what they can. They're trying to, depending on what business they are, like move to renewables and what have you. But, there's always going to be that bit left. And isn't that what carbon credits are for, actually? It's that bit that you just can't bring down in other ways.
Exactly. At the moment, it should be the last, those unavoidable emissions. Once you've done everything else, what's kind of left over? Okay, we need to compensate for that. I think soil carbon is such a new soil carbon credits are such a new kind of product to the carbon market space, let's say. But I think they hold such value because of those co-benefits and because of that locality, and because you can, any corporate client very happily take you to a farm somewhere near you that's doing something similar to this. Farmers love to show people what it's like, and I think it should form an essential part of anybody's carbon credit purchase portfolio, right? Soil carbon should be a kind of mainstay of every portfolio.
Is soil carbon kind of growing at the moment?
Yeah, up and coming, definitely. Yeah. Like I said, when I was started to work in it 4 or 5 years ago, there was no Vera program. Everybody was still trying to figure out exactly what to do, right? Today, the industry's moved forward hugely. Like Agreena's the largest soil carbon program to issue Vera credits in the world now. And so it's they're available. We've done the kind of work and the process to be able to get to that stage, and all of the audits and everything that we need to. And so now is the exciting time where we can engage with companies and fit it into their strategies.
And when corporate clients come to visit you, what are some of the key things they want to know from you?
Yeah, to be honest, it's similar to what you wanted to see, right? Normally they want to see a tractor, right? Obviously. Yeah. But it's always the kind of questions of like, why is this different? And like, how is it different? And what made you change, and why are other people not changing, and all those kind of things, which is really, really important to talk about. And people always love to see the kind of the reality of it, and it's really amazing. You get people coming, and they've obviously come on a farm walk, they're expecting to see a farm, but when you can show them the difference, and it's when people realize the difference for themselves, is really awesome. If you go and walk on a kind of conventional field and walk one of our fields, everybody knows it's different.
Yeah. I guess people want to know about the quality, because so many businesses are kind of concerned about greenwashing and things like that. So they want to know, I want to come and see it for themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why it's such an exciting differentiator, right? If you buy a carbon credit from, other side of the world, it's very tricky to go and visit it. Whereas, you could probably buy a carbon credit from somewhere up the road to wherever your offices or factory are. And, you might drive past it on the way to work every day, and you'll be able to see the difference.
And do you have an estimate annually or monthly how many emissions are being stored and saved here?
Yeah, so obviously, like I said, it depends hugely on the practices that a farmer does. But a 1 hectare of cropland can produce up to 2 carbon credits per hectare per year. That's on the high side. But I think our farm's average was just over 1 credit per hectare per year, or 1 ton of carbon.
So 1 credit is 1 ton of carbon.
Yeah. So our farm's average was, I think it was just over 1 ton of carbon per hectare per year. And then when we farm 800 hectares, it starts to add up.
Yeah. So what is that? 1 ton.
It'll be about, we probably produce about 1,000 carbon credits a year, probably. We're a fairly average sized farm, right? Imagine all the farms across the country.
It was fascinating to see how these practices can make a difference. Greener farming, healthier soil, and the potential to store real amounts of carbon underground. But one question still sticks with me. If you're already farming in a way that keeps carbon in the ground, why sell that benefit as a credit to someone else? Shouldn't those savings just stay in the soil? After all, the goal is to reduce emissions, not just move them around. Agreena argues that soil carbon credits serve both sides of the equation. They reward farmers for cutting emissions today and for actually removing carbon from the air, helping to scale regenerative agriculture quickly. They also say soil is unique because it delivers both reductions and removals, lowering nitrous oxide and CO2 emissions while storing new carbon through healthier soil systems. It's a powerful idea, but it also shows how complicated the path to net zero really is. Thank you for listening to GreenShift, the climate podcast from Skift. If you enjoyed the episode, please follow and share it wherever you get your podcasts. And stay tuned for more stories about the people reshaping the future of travel and the planet.